Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome in to GC Live here on Gamecock Central. We've got a little bit of a different crew here today. Kendall Smith joined alongside Jack Veltri as usual. And look who it is. Look who is joining us today. We've got Wes Mitchell in the house. What a treat for us. What a treat for everybody watching, Wes. What's the reason? Why'd you decide to join us? Because we just have that much fun on Wednesdays on GC Live and you felt like you were missing out on it?
Kendall, I've been hearing so many good things about the show you hosted that I was like, I've got to see what all the excitement is about. So here I am. I'm excited. And also, Chris is out of town right now. So I really did not want to do the other show by myself. So I'm just crashing your show. And there's a lot of recruiting happenings right now in Gamecock Nation. So I figured it just made sense.
Yeah, this is perfect. South Carolina coming off of its first official visit weekend of the summer of 2025. Jack, let's check in with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad Wes came in and crashed our show when he let me know that Chris was out of town this week. So could not leave you hanging, Wes, for sure. But doing well and, glad to be talking about some recruiting and not just football, but big week in baseball too, with lots of stuff going on in the transfer portal.
Yeah, we'll talk with Jack about some of the baseball stuff, with Wes about some of the football stuff. We'll just get to it all here today. But before we continue, Jack, some love for our presenting sponsor of GC Live.
Yes, right above us here on screen, if you're watching live right now, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. So if you're in the market to buy a home, but you don't know where to start, got good news for you. Clint can help you out. He's been a lifelong Gamecock fan. He's a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central. He's also been in the mortgage industry for a very long time now, 20 plus years. So you're in the right hands with a guy like Clint. If you're interested, give him a call, 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597. Go to clinthammond.com for more info. And again, he'll help you out along the way and get you on the right path towards buying that dream home you've always wanted.
We always appreciate Clint and all that he does for us here at Gamecock Central. Okay, Wes, let's get into some football recruiting talk. Like I said, South Carolina coming off of its first official visit weekend of 2025. I know you've been working the phone lines, talking to guys that were there. We had a conversation last week on the recruiting rundown about what the weekend would entail. But so far, what's been some of the feedback that you've received from some of those guys that were there on official visits?
Yeah, Kendall, most of the time, the recruiting weekends, they go great. And so that was the case again this week. 8 guys came in. All of them had a good time. I've said on the site, though, it's going to be a little bit more of a slow burn, I think, with some of these guys who were in this past weekend. Almost all of them, except for the one that's already committed, basically had a slate of official visits to multiple schools, kind of already scheduled. Every now and then you'll get a guy who just says, you know what, I'm shutting it down. I'm going to go ahead and commit. That does happen, but for the most part, I would say maybe 5 to 6 of these 8 kids are pretty set on wanting to take their visit. So I think for South Carolina, this weekend was kind of just about setting the table, setting kind of a standard that the other schools they're going to go take visits to are going to have to live up to. And I think South Carolina did make a major move, probably to an extent with all these guys. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to land them all. I think there are a lot of guys on this list where Carolina maybe had a little bit of ground to make up coming into the weekend. But I do think successful on all fronts. And interestingly enough, we're kind of already turning the page to the next big official visit weekend, which is this weekend. And a lot of these guys have created quite a bit of buzz online this week, getting the predictions from around the various networks to end up at South Carolina. So I do think this could be a potentially more active weekend even than the last in terms of guys that may be wanting to make decisions fairly soon and could be trending to South Carolina. So I do think you're starting to see, after a little lull in May is one of the slowest months out there in terms of recruiting, you're starting to see that momentum pick up for South Carolina.
Yeah, and we always talk about it, just especially in the month of June, so busy when it comes to these official visits. I want to talk about the OVs that are set for this upcoming weekend. Wes and I will do a recruiting rundown where we preview all of that a little bit more in depth as well. But Wes, what stands out to you about who's coming this weekend?
Yeah, it's a great list, especially there at the top. And we've talked about Landon Duckworth for months now and, on the recruiting rundown, Kendall, and we've talked about how, hey, he's the guy they've really truly wanted at quarterback. Even when they were involved with some other guys in that class, Duckworth has been the top of the board guy for them. And you kind of wondered, hey, are they going to be able to bring this thing full circle and actually land him or not? And Ole Miss is still sitting there. They're battling with them. I do think they're still a factor. Like, I don't think South Carolina's at the finish line yet with Landon Duckworth, but they got him on campus. I think that was April, May, something like that. I think it was April, actually. Got him in. That was his first visit in a long, long time. And I think from that point forward, you really started to kind of behind the scenes hear a little bit more about Carolina being back in this one. They are certainly going to look to kind of push all the right buttons this weekend and put that one over the top. He has other visits set up. If you're Carolina, you'd actually love to maybe see him cancel a couple of those visits. I don't know if that'll happen, but we'll see if they can get him locked up and in the fold this coming weekend. And then, a couple of other guys, interestingly enough, you're familiar with them, Kendall, but Aiden and Andrew Harris from up there in North Carolina, both sort of front seven defensive guys. South Carolina wants Aiden as a defensive tackle and Andrew as a linebacker. Lots of buzz just throughout the internet this week about South Carolina trending with those guys. And, I can confirm the Gamecocks believe they're in excellent shape with both those kids. Aiden has sort of hinted online, hey, decision soon, without necessarily putting an exact date on that. So I think going into the weekend, you would probably heavily project those two to ultimately end up in South Carolina's class.
Yeah, Aiden and Andrew Harris are both unbelievable. I've told the story a couple of times on the show, but I was the sideline reporter for the state championship last year in North Carolina for 4A. And Weddington, which is actually where I went to high school, it's where those two go to high school as well. They were playing. Those two were sophomores at the time. And I remember looking at them, and they were just like next level when they were out. Like it was unbelievable. So even as sophomores, immediately I'm like, yes. And now obviously going into their senior year, South Carolina in a really good spot with both of them. So we'll see how all of that ends up. Obviously with Duckworth as well, that's something we are following very, very closely over here on Gamecock Central. But Jack, it is an interesting point because a lot of these guys, they have other visits set up. South Carolina, obviously in big recruiting battles with a lot of big time schools, and South Carolina needs to set itself apart in a world where I feel like the bar is so high just across the board, and these guys have multiple visits and they've got decisions to make. How do you feel like South Carolina can really set itself apart on these visits?
Yeah, I think number one, and you hear the positive reaction, I think that is, and Wes, this is kind of something I was going to ask. I mean, is there not like some trickle effect with these, with all the stories that come out and stuff from what recruits say and stuff about how good the visits were and, official weekend and all that? Do you feel like there's some trickle effect with that as we head into another big recruiting weekend here?
Yeah, I think certainly the prospects talk. Like, they know each other. Even if they don't know each other very well personally, they all follow each other at this point, and it is very social. So I think any sort of momentum you can get can carry over. Now, these guys are making their own decisions, but certainly if I'm a prospect, I kind of want to go somewhere where I feel like they're on the up. That's something you hear prospects say or talk about a lot. They're on the up and up, or they've got momentum, is something that we'd probably say about it. That's how we'd say it. And I think Carolina has a nice combination right now in terms of the momentum they had last season, like showing, all right, 9 wins, you can win here right on the cusp of the college football playoff. And then some more kind of localized, like more just immediate momentum going into the summer, just in terms of recruiting in this recruiting class. And, I think it hasn't quite realized itself yet. Like an RPM or a crystal ball prediction is not the same as a commitment. And a commitment is not, frankly, the same as a signing, especially these days. But I do think if you're Carolina, you are going to start to see some of these come to fruition in terms of public commitments. Maybe end of this week, going into certainly by the beginning of next week, I think you could see some of these turn into public situations. And I think that is really where you start to see that momentum build and other people take notice and stuff like that. And, for a lot of these kids too, it's going to be fascinating to see what do we hear. If you're a prospect and you're taking 4 or 5 official visits, you go to Carolina for your first one, you're going to be blown away, man. Like you just absolutely are. Like you're eating more than you can eat. You are experiencing stuff you've maybe never experienced before. You're going to be absolutely blown away. Now, visit number 2 comes across. Visit number 3 comes across. How do you react? How do you react moving forward? How do you compare the 2 or 3? So a lot of these guys, I would maybe say like a PJ Dean who came in this past weekend. If he was deciding today, I think it would be Carolina. Like I'd be pretty comfortable saying that, but he's going to go see Georgia and Ohio State. So those are obviously major powers. So I would say not you're not at the finish line yet, but you're off to a good start in the race.
And to kind of circle back to, the initial question you had, Kendall, just about, setting the bar. And, we have a comment here, setting the bar early isn't always a bad thing, which I really do agree with, because, if these kids are going on their first visit of the summer here and it's to South Carolina, they have a chance to make a huge impression right away. And, from reading a lot of the stuff that Wes and Chris put out on GamecockCentral.com, which you guys should go definitely check out if you haven't yet, it seems like it's very, personable with what the coaches are doing and the staff, and making sure these kids that are coming in feel like this could be their home for the next 3 to 4 years and stuff. And so I think that's definitely what you want. And obviously other schools are going to have similar things. They're going to do different things that make them stand out. But that's the one thing that always sticks out about South Carolina, is just how family oriented, how connected everything just feels. And I think that really does stand out to a lot of the recruits out there.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, go ahead, Kendall.
No, you go, Wes. Take it.
No, I was just going to say it does. I do think, every school wants to present that, but that is something with Shane Beamer that you're always going to get. And it was funny. A lot of the guys I talked to, because we got interviews, I think with, let's see, like 7 of the 8 or 6 of the 8 that were on campus. And, you don't always get that. Like I was very happy with that. And they kept bringing up the photo shoot. And I'm just like, why are y'all bringing up the photo shoot? Like the photo shoots are cool, but photo shoots been going on forever. And part of it was that Beamer was like right up in there, involved in all of it. Like he's if you see some of the photos that come out, he's sitting there doing whatever pose the prospect wants. And, he's on the mic welcoming the guys into the room, like for the first time in a Gamecock uniform, like, stuff that, let's be honest, college football can be a little corny. Like you got to be willing to put yourself out there, but dude, kids love this stuff. So I think that part matters. One of the kids was like, sometimes you go on a visit, the head coach isn't even all around all that often. And he's like Beamer was everywhere we went. So I think that stuff stands out. There's a photo going around where one of the kids, Travis Johnson, wide receiver, 4-star guy from Virginia, they had decorated a locker for like, this is what your locker will look like when you get to South Carolina. And they had printed off photos of like him and his family in the locker. Like visualize, this is going to be like where your jersey hangs, but hey, here's all the people in your life that have helped you get to this point. So there is an attention to detail there, a family oriented vibe there. And, Zach mentions that video they did with Travis Johnson, basically in EA college football. Y'all just cover my face up. No worries. Just in EA college football. I mean, it's probably one of the best video edits I've ever seen. The background for the photo shoot, which Justin King credited Zach Frase, who's on the media team, for taking care of. I mean, looked phenomenal. So the little details matter. Like it's stuff that, and it doesn't mean you're going to get every kid. You're actually going to miss on more than you're going to get, but those things will add up over time.
Yeah, and we've talked about that attention to detail at times before. I mean, it is really incredible what goes into this week or these weekends, just down to the food that they're eating, the way that everywhere is decorated. Again, the lockers, the photo shoots, the videos, the creative media side of it. There is so much that goes into this. And, Shane Beamer is the best. He is a player's coach through and through. Everybody knows that. I mean, everybody always has incredible reviews about Shane Beamer when they finish these official visits. But Wes, you brought up a really good point a few minutes ago. You get guys to commit. That's obviously the hope and the goal. But in today's day and age in college football, getting them to sign is basically a whole other battle. You get the commitment, and then you still have a process to making sure that they sign the dotted line and put pen to paper. So after these visits, if you get guys to commit, which inevitably South Carolina will get some of these guys to commit, then what does that next phase look like, especially in today's era of college football, where you're trying to make sure, okay, we have this guy who's committed, now he's got to sign?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been this way, but certainly these days, and then even once you get them on campus, transfer portal, right? Like you could lose them in a year or two anyway. So I do think there's a certain sense of, all right, if you just be who you are, and then the guys want to be a part of that, you don't really have to switch up once they get on campus. You don't have to, like, if your recruiting pitch is fake or phony, and then you kind of switch up after they commit, or certainly once they get on campus, they're going to know, all right, this is not what I signed up for. And then they're going to, be out of here. So I do think a lot of it is if you just handle yourself and be who you are, you're going to lose commitments. Like everybody does. But for the most part, I think it's just about continuing to build the relationship, continue to stay on the guys. And then, frankly, you do like to have some semblance of success on the field. Like you can't tank a season. Most of your players will stick through you, but you will, lose some guys if you have a much worse season than people are expecting you to have. So I think there's always that element. Can South Carolina continue the success they've had last season through this season and, keep that momentum going to where the guys are like, all right, I can come in and help this team take that next step from what they're doing on the field right now?
What do you think, Jack? I mean, you're around Shane Beamer all the time, and you obviously cover this team week in, week out during the season too. You're on the road with them, and you see everything basically, and you know how things roll in the program. So from your perspective, just what do you think has been key for South Carolina and making them so successful in recruiting over the last few years?
Well, number one, I mean, kind of like Wes said, I mean, you don't want to have down seasons and you want to have success. And, fortunately for South Carolina, looking at the first 4 years under Shane, it's been fairly successful. Now, 2023 is the outlier in all of that with a 5-7 season, but they've been able to bounce back and, winning. I remember he said, I think it was maybe at the National Signing Day press conference after the season or, during the month of December when all that was going on. He just talked about how much easier it is to recruit and get guys on board when you're winning. Like after the 5-7 season, it becomes a lot more tough. And, obviously he said there were guys that, just didn't want to be a part of that. And understandably so, when there's other programs out there, especially in the SEC, that are winning year in and year out. But South Carolina is a program that's on the rise. And I think that is very intriguing to a lot of people out there. Now, we'll see what happens this season, but it seems like things are heading in the right direction. And then you add on what we've talked about now for a little bit here, the family atmosphere, just that dynamic and making these recruits feel special, I think is just such a big thing, especially for the ones that really are either in-state or local or just from anywhere, to be honest. I think that really does help in the long run is the little things, the attention to detail that Wes referenced talking about.
Well, Wes, this is what everybody wants to know about. Do you think after this weekend of official visits, we'll have any welcome home tweets that go out?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a good question.
It's hard to tell, obviously. I mean, you don't know how the weekend will go, but just gut feel.
Yeah. So and I was sitting here while we were talking. I was like, we do need to talk about a few more individual guys too. And so I was going through the list, and so right now we've got 9 prospects on our list that we've tracked as, hey, they're supposed to be on campus this weekend. And I will say a lot of them are like last week where, hey, they may want to take other visits. You got 2 of the 9 that are already committed to South Carolina. So that takes 2 guys off the page that could be, they can't be welcome homes basically. But you know what? I think especially with the Harris twins being on campus and the potential of Duckworth, I do think he'll probably take those final visits. But also we got to remember, even if a guy is going to take more visits, that doesn't stop him from going ahead and telling the staff, I want to be a Gamecock. So we have seen this happen quite a bit. Hey, coach, I'm coming. I want to take my final couple visits, and then I'm going to make it official in public. So I'm going to say yes, just playing the numbers. I think they're in a good enough spot with enough of these guys where I could see them getting a couple of welcome homes. I think you obviously got, there's a welcome home from the past that hasn't been revealed yet as well that could be revealed, in the next week or so. So I would keep an eye on that. But, Kendall, I think for a lot of these guys too, you can't rule out somebody that visited this past weekend having gotten home, maybe taken a visit elsewhere, or just be like, you know what, I know where I want to be. Let me call coach and commit. So I do think, let's go through a couple of guys real quick if y'all are okay with that. I think Carter Meadows, 5-star guy. I mean, got to be one of the most prioritized recruits on South Carolina's board right now, as highly recruited as he is. I think he will take all of his visits. He's got 4 of them lined up, so 3 other than South Carolina. I think he will take his visits, but I really believe South Carolina is in as strong a position for him as they could be at this point. I think they turned some heads there with him and his family this weekend. In terms of guys that I think would probably be Gamecocks if they committed today, I think they made a big move with J.B. Shabazz, the 4-star offensive tackle from North Carolina. He's from Winston-Salem. I think, like I said earlier, P.J. Dean, I think they're in a good spot there. I think you look at Travis Johnson, the wide receiver from Virginia. I think they made a move there too. So really, there's not a guy you circle maybe other than the Harris twins that you'd say that's who I'm looking towards. But when you just look at all those possibilities, I do think you'll start to see some guys go ahead and lock in.
Well, it's always exciting when there is a welcome home tweet that goes out. I know everyone loves it. And then it's just the anticipation waiting from there to see, okay, who's it going to be? What's going to happen? But we are at the time of the year where you will start to see a lot more of those, which is great. And, Wes, you talk about it, not only just trying to obviously impress the players, but impress the families as well. The families are on these official visits. They are also taking in South Carolina, the football program, what it has to offer. So what kind of goes into that? Like, how does it differentiate? Obviously, trying to impress the player and what they're doing throughout an official visit weekend versus what family members might be doing.
Yeah, some of the stuff on the visits is more, I would say, combined, where the family and the players are doing the same things. Other times, it's kind of split up, and it's almost like 2 visits that are running at the same time. And so there will be certain things on the visit that is a little bit more oriented towards, all right, let the player go hang out with this player host, spend some time with the team, maybe some parents want to just go relax a little bit. So that's always an option. Or maybe it's a parent or, parents that want to be entertained the whole weekend. So you're going to kind of have those things going at various times. They're really, I think one thing people would be surprised about is just how tired people are at the end of an official visit weekend, because you've just been busy doing stuff the entire time. And so I think for the most part, though, ultimately you want for them to feel comfortable with their kid going to that school and going to that staff. And, most of these parents, they may have an opinion, but it's going to be more about, all right, can I sign off on my kid going to that school? They can pick wherever they want, but I got to sign off on it, if that makes sense. So I do think, and most schools do a fantastic job. Certainly South Carolina does a fantastic job making sure mom, dad, sometimes grandpa, aunt, whoever that's on the visit has a good time as well.
Jack, what do you think? Do you think we'll see any welcome home tweets after this weekend?
Were there any over the weekend?
Well, did you read Gamecock Central, Jack? I mean,
I read here and there. I'm an occasional subscriber.
He's a casual reader.
There were no welcome homes over the weekend. No.
I'm a casual guy. I think there is a lot of potential here, because look, I mean, like you guys have said, I mean, if a guy feels like he knows this place is home, they're gonna make the decision sooner rather than later. So I think it is very much possible we see some welcome home tweets this weekend, which I think is definitely in the cards.
Yeah, Wes, you talked about it. Maybe like a guy will know, okay, I want to go to South Carolina. They tell the staff they're going to go ahead and commit, but then they go on other visits. Is that not a little bit stressful? Like, I still feel like I wouldn't fully feel great about it until all of the other visits were done, because it just reminds me, like, when I'm in baseball season or hockey season, those are the two main sports that I spend the most time around. People will be like, well, what do you like better? And when it's the middle of hockey season, I'm like, all in on hockey, let's go. And then it's the middle of baseball season, I'm like, well, I really like baseball. I don't know, it might be my favorite. It's kind of hard. It's like if you're at one place one day and you're like, yes, I love this place, this is perfect. But then you go another place the next weekend, you also love that place and you have a great experience. Wouldn't you want to be one of the last or later visits if you're South Carolina?
Well, there's pros and cons to being first and last. I do think, all things being equal, you want that public commitment, right? Like the private commitment only goes so far, I think. Like it's like when, in a relationship, when you post it out for everybody to see, it's like, all right, everybody knows what's up at this point, the private commit, a silent commit only means so much. So yeah, it's a good point. Now you'll still take it most of the time if you're Carolina. And, I think here's the thing. A lot of times, especially with younger prospects, maybe not necessarily as much with the senior guys, if a young kid wants to commit to South Carolina, a lot of times they will say, are you sure? Like it's not just, we're not accepting a commitment just because you want to commit. Even if you have an offer, it's going to be, all right, are you positive? Like nobody wants a commitment that lasts 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? So I do think there is an element of that. Like, hey, let's make sure this is right. And if you're not quite ready, you don't have to be. It's not really a high pressure situation most of the time.
Well, Wes and I will talk about this a little bit more on a recruiting rundown later on this week. We're excited about the official visits coming up this weekend. Things just keep on rolling in the world of recruiting. And before we get to talking about baseball and how things are rolling over there with the transfer portal, Wes, we've got another sponsor to shout out today.
Yeah, let me tell everybody about our friends over at My Perfect Franchise, mainly my guy, Andy Luedecke. Give him a call today, 404-973-9901, or shoot him an email, andy@myperfectfranchise.net. You may be saying, what does My Perfect Franchise do? Well, essentially, if you want to start your own business, or really if you even want to start a side business, build wealth, create a legacy, Andy is here to help you with franchising. So what he's going to do, he's going to take down a lot of information, chat with you, see what your interests are, see how much time and financial, what your financial commitment level could be too. Then he's going to match you up with a franchise that sort of matches that as well.
Let your dog.
I don't think the pup is enjoying my ad read, so I'm just going to let y'all continue for a moment.
Shout out to Thatcher, Wes's new dog. Absolutely adorable. We've asked this question before. If I had a franchise, I would want it to be Jersey Mike's because it's elite in the sandwich category. So sorry. Wes looks at me like I'm crazy. I mean, out of the chains, obviously Beezer's is the best of the best. If you know, you know. Columbia. What's the best, Wes? Unmute yourself.
I've got a dog. The dog is barking at your terrible food take because everyone knows Firehouse Subs is the best.
That's second best.
Kendall.
Second, it's my silver medal winner. Number one is Jersey Mike's. I'm so sorry. Jack, what do you think before?
God, conflicting things going on here. You know, I love Firehouse. I think Firehouse is very good. I also love Jersey Mike's. But you know what really is good? A nice Groucho's. Groucho's is so good.
That's not.
Oh, but it's not. Oh, you talking just chains? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, best sandwiches in Columbia. I mean, Groucho's is very good. And Andy's Deli is also good. Beezer's is great too. Yeah, I'd probably have to go Firehouse, honestly, though.
All right, I'm out. No, I'm kidding. I do like Firehouse. It's good, but I just love Jersey Mike's for some reason. It is my favorite. Okay, anyways, enough talk about that. Let's talk about baseball. It has been a busy week with the transfer portal. I feel like I say that every week. I'm just talking about a different sport. And this week, we're talking about baseball. So, Jack, for anyone that's like, what are you talking about? Give them the rundown. What happened this week for South Carolina? They lost some guys. They gained some guys. The portal giveth and it taketh, as well as we have been saying now for years.
Yeah, a lot of activity in the portal for South Carolina. They just got another commitment today from Ant Phillips, a starting pitcher from USC Upstate. He started the year. It's funny. He started the year as a reliever. Actually, closed out some games for the Spartans this year, but in the middle of March, he ended up moving into the rotation, made 12 starts this year. And looking at just some of his numbers here, I mean, he was really, really dominant once he moved into the rotation, about a 3.5 ERA, held opponents to a batting average of 212. So a lot to like about him. And I know Gamecock fans will like hearing this. He pitched very well against Clemson in the Clemson Regional over the weekend, went 6 innings. So that is good to see that he can go up there and pitch well against Power 4 opponents like Clemson. And then just overall, they've had now 4 commitments out of the transfer portal. Obviously, their recruiting class with 6 high school guys and a plethora of JUCO guys is coming together very nicely, but still a lot to add here out of the portal. Now they've got a few pitchers coming in. They've gotten a first baseman, third baseman, DH, kind of that mix of a guy who could play both corner infield spots, and Logan Sutter from Purdue. And then they have lost a lot of guys from the current team. I believe it's up to 14 players now that are going to enter the portal and explore options elsewhere. But honestly, when you really break it down and look at it, I think there's only a few guys that you're really thinking like, man, these are some big losses here, with guys like Jace Voida, who hit 300 this season for South Carolina. And he was hitting in the middle of the order when Ethan Petrie went down with his injury. And then you have a guy like Ryder Garino, a freshman right-handed pitcher, who I think has a lot of potential. So a lot of guys that you're losing, and I think you can kind of I think the staff kind of was just okay with the fact of we can handle losing a few of these guys, and it's not going to really affect us. At the same time, now they have a lot of roster spots open to where they're able to bring in more of the guys that Paul Maneri has talked about looking for in terms of guys that hit for power and could throw hard.
In terms of what you've seen so far, just with the movement of the portal, Jack, is this what you expected for South Carolina? Some of the guys they've been picking up, do you feel like they meet what South Carolina is looking for? And then in terms of some of the guys that have left, I mean, was this pretty much your expectation up to this point?
I think so. I think we kind of knew going into, at the end of the season, going into the portal, which opened on Monday, that they were going to lose a lot of guys because of the season. And a lot of the guys that they did lose didn't perform super well this season. It's not to say they aren't good. It's just they have a lot of potential. It's just for whatever reason, it just did not work out the way that some guys regressed. Some guys that were good in 2024 just didn't have a great season this year, and that's going to happen. So you wish them well. Go look for another opportunity elsewhere. Maybe they'll land on their feet and have a better season going into 2026. But I think right now, what they've gotten out of the portal is very good. They also gotten a two-way player, Cullen Horowitz, who is from Samford, and the numbers on him aren't very great. You look at his batting stats; they just aren't up to where you want. His ERA with Samford in a few relief appearances this year wasn't ideal either. But there's something there that South Carolina sees that we don't, and what that is, I'm not sure exactly at the moment. But I think there's a lot of development and potential with the guys that they're bringing in, and a few of these guys that have been brought in, as I said, Logan Sutter, Amp Phillips, guys like that. They're already established players. Josh Gregory is another one that committed from ULM. These guys are already established players who can come in and make an immediate impact right away. And especially with a guy like Phillips who committed today. I mean, I mentioned the fact before that he started a lot for USC Upstate this year and did very well against some good opponents. I think that's something that needs to be kept an eye on because you're losing two of your three weekend starters. The only one that you're retaining is Jake McCoy, who I think could probably be a Friday, Saturday starter for South Carolina next season. I could easily see Phillips filling in either of those Friday or Saturday spots, whichever one McCoy doesn't pitch in. I think Phillips is that next guy. And then they've still got to go out there and get some more pitching, I think, to really round things out because, I mean, the pitching just was not very good in 2025. But besides that, still a lot of positions to fill. I think middle infield's a big one. And then outfield, depending on what happens here with Ethan Petrie and Nathan Hall, potentially being drafted pretty high. Don't think you're going to get them back, but that's really what South Carolina has left to fill out here.
We talk about with recruiting and with the transfer portal on the football side, we were just mentioning it. Winning obviously moves the needle. It helps you. And we know that South Carolina had a rough year when it came to baseball. So does that concern you at all, Jack? I mean, they've obviously been able to pick up some guys up until this point with the portal, but as they look to fill some more roster spots, do you feel like South Carolina has its work cut out for them a little bit more because they're trying to convince some of these guys, like, yeah, we know we did not have a good year this past season, but there's, obviously still gas in the tank, still a reason to come to South Carolina. Do you feel like their work is cut out for them a little bit more because of that?
I do think so. And it's funny you mentioned that. I actually remember asking Paul Maneri about that kind of towards the end of the regular season, just about, hey, like, you guys are doing well in recruiting, you say, but, how hard is it going to be to bring in guys from the transfer portal, just knowing how the season went and what you're up against in the SEC? I mean, the conference got 13 teams into the NCAA tournament this year. And I know a lot of them have been eliminated after regional play with only 4 teams going into supers. But needless to say, you were only better than Missouri this year in baseball. And so that is a very low bar right now, and you have a lot of work cut out to do. And so how do you kind of handle that? Well, Maneri, I remember saying just was that, look, the losing, it is what it is right now. But, they have – if the recruiting pitch is basically this. You can either go be a part of a program that is already well established, great, and just be another guy there, or you can come in, be an impact player here and kind of help lead the turnaround at South Carolina, because we know this program was not that far off from or being in the postseason last year. I mean, this was a very solid team, ranked in the top 25, ranked in the top 15 in the middle of May last season, and just kind of had a late season collapse to head into the postseason. But I do think this is a program that can get back on track, and I like a lot of the players they're bringing in so far. It's very little with the portal guys that they brought in so far, but the guys they brought in are very solid. And I think it's kind of just scratching the surface of getting them to buy in and bringing in more players that are ready to help this team get back to where they want to be.
Well, South Carolina obviously did not make the postseason this year, but we did have an eventful weekend of regional matchups. It was fun to watch as we get ready for the super regionals coming up this weekend. I got to ask both of you, Wes, did you watch any of the regional matchups this weekend?
I watched Coastal.
Okay. And then Jack, I'm sure you were tuned in.
Yeah, I watched a lot of these different ones. I watched a little bit of LSU and Little Rock over the weekend. Coastal, like Wes said, just a lot of parity this so far in this tournament, especially in regional play, where you have a 4 seed like Murray State taking down Ole Miss. I mean, that was kind of crazy. And Little Rock taking LSU kind of down to the wire until that last inning. I mean, just a very awesome first round of the tournament to pay attention to.
I've got to give a shout out to Murray State because the MVP of that regional, Dusty Mercer, went to high school with me. He is also a Weddington product. So he was fantastic. Like, I don't know exactly how many extra base hits he had throughout, but he was phenomenal. So it was fun to watch. We are fully in the swing, no pun intended, of postseason college baseball right now, which is always a blast. But guys, before we get out of here, final thoughts. We talked baseball, we talked football. Wes, anything you want to add?
No, I got a question. I'll do a final question for Jack. Who else do you think we're tracking baseball wise, like that could come back? Is there anybody else that has not announced? I mean, I know Ethan can, but Ethan's going to the draft. Like that's probably foregone conclusion. Nate Hall, you would imagine. Is there anybody else that kind of splits the difference that is not announced? Portal, not announced, they're coming back, and will probably like that you think has a chance of coming back?
So I'm glad you brought that up because I think they're down to, last time I checked a little while ago here, I think they're down to 8 guys now that from potential returning players that have not announced one way or the other what they're doing for next year. Now, we saw Parker Marlott a little while ago here announced that he's coming back for his junior season. He was South Carolina's top relief pitcher this year. And I think that is a very nice piece to have back because he was very solid as a freshman and then was very solid this year for South Carolina, obviously, as the team ERA leader. Now, in terms of who else could potentially come back, I think it's safe to say Ethan Petrie's not coming back. I don't know if you guys didn't see it today, he posted on his Instagram basically just a thank you for the last 3 years message, a little vague, but basically implying that, like he's going to be focusing on the draft here. And it makes sense just because he's going to be an early round draft pick. And I think Nate Hall will be taken pretty early on too. I mean, if there's one thing that Paul Maneri was certainly right about this year, it was definitely the fact that Nate Hall was going to be a pro prospect, pro player someday. I mean, he was phenomenal to watch this year. And I always remember Paul saying, I can't remember when he said it, but if he had Nate Hall's up and down the lineup, I mean, that's what he would want. I mean, that's the type of player that he was looking for bringing in, and that's what he did with a guy like that from right down the road at Clemson. So I think those guys are probably gone. A few that I'm hearing potentially could be back. Keep an eye on Brandon Stone. That's one that hasn't come out publicly yet, but something that I think we could see a potential return in that regard. I'm not sure exactly when that would come out, but something to pay attention to there. And beyond that, I think there are a few other guys like Ashton Crowther's another one that is draft eligible. That's the other thing. Most of the guys that have not made a decision yet one way or the other, and again, these guys can still enter the portal and be in the draft and all that, keep their options open. But a lot of the guys that we have not seen make a decision yet are guys that are juniors or seniors that are draft eligible that also could come back. Another name is Henry Kazmar, who I'm honestly not sure what to think of what his decision would be. I mean, again, he's not a local kid. He's from Ohio, played at Ohio State, had a great season here at Carolina. He is draft eligible. He's on some draft prospect lists. I think if any guys get picked in the draft here, like Henry, wouldn't surprise me if he got picked in the later rounds. I think you don't turn that down necessarily because if teams are picking you in their draft, you're going to be signing with them more likely than not. Every now and then you'll see guys turn down the money to go play college ball or something. That's normally high school guys. With college guys, it's kind of like if you get picked, you're probably going to turn pro. So I think a few guys could come back, but at the top of the list, I'd probably say guys like Brandon Stone, maybe Ashton Crowther's another one to keep an eye on there.
Anything else, Wes? That's it from Wes.
He says no.
He says no. He's not even going to unmute himself. Jack, what about you? Any final thoughts on anything we talked about here today?
No, it just seems like things are going very well in recruiting from a football standpoint. Obviously, baseball, things are going pretty well so far in recruiting with the transfer portal now open. And yeah, I mean, it's just really getting started, to be honest. I mean, we'll have plenty of coverage on GamecockCentral.com. So if you guys aren't already, go ahead and head on over there. Check out everything we've got going on.
Yeah, we say it every single time. GamecockCentral.com. That is the spot that you want to be at. We've got a lot going on over there, and we keep you updated with everything you need to know across the board for South Carolina athletics. And you can follow us on social media at Gamecock Central as well. This was fun. We should do this more often. Have Wes on the show. You'll have to ditch Chris a few times coming up here over the summer, Wes. That sound good?
I'm going to tell him you said that, but okay.
Go ahead. Tell him I said it. Chris, we want Wes on the show, minimum of one time a month. I'm going to write it in a contract. Wes is going to sign it, and we will make it happen. But next week, it'll probably be just Jack and I back with you. Wes is on, though, a ton. He's got his own GC Live show, and we will also do a recruiting rundown for you this week as well. So stay tuned on that. But we appreciate all of you joining us here on this Wednesday edition of GC Live. We hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, a great rest of your week, and an awesome start to your summer, everybody. I know it's not officially summer yet, but you know what I mean. So thank you so much for joining us. For Wes Mitchell, Jack Veltri, I'm Kendall Smith. This has been GC Live here on Gamecock Central, and we will see you soon.